Hey, welcome back to another episode of Green Squad Chats. Today, we are going to talk about investing in your people. And what that means to us. I think we have some similar, but maybe some differing perspectives here on Green Squad, but it's something that's near and dear to all of us, given our time in the military, some of us still serving, just investing in your people, what that means. So I'm excited about this conversation today. I want to kick it over first to Tom. Get some good ideas on this.
Wow. I wasn't ready. All right. So Brandon knows I'm a big fan of investing in people. I guess the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about investing in your people, there's the old quote, why would I invest in my people? They might leave my organization. And, I think the comeback in that anecdote is, well, what if you don't invest in them and they stay? And on our earlier call this morning, we were talking about just this. Where it hits home for me is when you have an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life, and I'm talking outside the work performance, when you have an opportunity to positively impact someone's life while you're in a leadership role and you don't take it, well, they're going to remember that forever. And the results will bear out accordingly. And when you have an opportunity to invest in someone and you do, whether it's taking a risk, whether it's offering something that maybe you shouldn't, not against the rules, but maybe, going out on a limb for somebody and the results again come back, 10x, 100x. And in this group, we could tell stories for days. But I think every time you have an opportunity to do that, you've got to, somebody comes in with a problem, wasn't something you were expecting, and you meet them where they are and take care of them, the results will come back in spades, right? You'll have a happy employee, worker, a higher performer in the end. And that just is infectious around the unit, around the organization, whatever the sample size is. So
yeah, I love that. And I think it might be helpful too, to just kind of throw out there, anyone in the group, what's your definition of investing in your people? What does that even mean to you?
I was just about to go down this talk track here because in my opinion, it starts with knowing your people and what their goals are, because what you believe to be investing in your people, at least in the military sense, we're thinking alignment with the institution and return on investment, which is valid. It is a component of it. But I think when you can create alignment with who somebody is by actually knowing them at a meaningful level, and you create alignment between organizational goals and personal goals, you have the most powerful formula you can possibly have. You won't get all the wins with your people, but if you know them, you can find, hey, this person really wants to achieve this in their career, in this organization, or in their personal life. And we actually have things that can align to help them grow in a meaningful way, which will then impact their loyalty to the team, their production on the team, their performance on the team. It will literally impact all things. We just had the 29th Commandant of the Marine Corps passed away, a guy named Al Gray, one of my favorite leaders in military history. And he was a big proponent of leadership by walking around. He talked about this a lot. When you're talking about being a leader of a large organization, it's hard to be in tune with, from the top all the way to the bottom. But he made that a priority, which I think made him one of the best historical leaders in our service, at least. So leadership by walking around, because that's like the only way to know your people is to interact with your people. Can't do it through email, can't do it through Slack channel, can't always do it through Zoom. You need to get knee to knee and have and create a genuine understanding of what that person's goals are and how you may be able to align with the organization, or even how you can help them outside of the organization, which would make them a more powerful person in the organization.
I think I go to military examples a lot, but on the business side of things, right? As we, all of us are in some stage of transitioning to less military, more business. I see a lot this notion that, I want to find the cheapest possible employee, the cheapest possible solution to solve this problem. And we apply that same approach often to hiring. In general, people in business, right? Not accusing any of you. And I think when you look at I've talked before about this notion of assuming positive intent. And if you apply that same general mindset to hiring, well, I don't assume that you're going to come in and try to nickel and dime me. I assume you're going to come in and be productive and work hard and contribute to the team. And I want to compensate you in line with this expectation that I'm going to put on you, this idea that you will come in and be a contributor. And I think it just breeds goodness. You could say you get what you pay for. Well, if I want to hire at the cheapest possible level, I'm going to be dissatisfied with the results. And then I'm going to tell myself I shouldn't have hired because it becomes this vicious cycle where we're not really naming the thing. And so I think investing in your people does have a financial component in the business world, right? Not something we could do in the military, at least not directly, but in the business world, the opportunity to truly invest in your people, to put your dollars out there, can have very similar positive results. And it doesn't all have to be compensation. There's other ways to do that. But this notion, again, of assuming positive intent, finding the best in people, putting that out there and having that come back. I think Travis was talking about that earlier. I think that's super important.
When I consider building an elite team, I realize that high achievers desire accountability. High achievers want to be held accountable, and weak performers hate accountability, and the two don't like to be around each other. So you guys know me, I reject mediocrity at every possible opportunity. It took me a long time in the military to realize that in that moment of holding someone accountable, because you are trying to build an elite team to rise to your fullest potential of performance, that accountability won't feel comfortable. And you also won't be liked. As a leader, you have to stomach that. That took me a long time to understand. And some days I still feel uncomfortable with it, and that's okay. So I think accountability is huge for empowering your team, because if you don't set a standard and expect your team to deliver on it, it's going to fall off the track. Don't expect yourself to grow. Don't expect your team to grow. It's not all about you, but don't expect your organization to succeed. I think that is a huge component for me, for my leadership style with investing in my people.
I love that. The idea that investing in your people isn't just giving them what they want all the time. It's helping them grow. And part of helping somebody grow is to challenge them, provide a safe space, right, where they could fail and learn from it and keep going, but challenge them and then hold them accountable to what they say they want to do. So that's a huge component of it. And then to further kind of clarify my definition of investing in your people, it's understanding what their growth goals are. And Adam touched on this. And in fact, I think Tom touched on a little bit of what I'm going to say too. Understanding, what their growth goals are. And they can be personal, right? They can be personal, they can be professional, but just understanding them, who they are and what their goals are. And then looking for ways to hold them accountable to make progress with those goals. And to get to Tom's point, it wasn't his point, but it's something he mentioned about a lot of times the organization may say, well, we're not going to have you here long enough, so we're not going to invest in you because we won't see the return on investment. Baloney. Because if you're helping somebody achieve their goals, if you're helping them get better and develop, those skills, regardless of whether or not they're directly tied to their specific job, they will be able to take that growth and apply it to their job. So, for example, if they have a personal goal and they want to learn more about X, they go out, you help them, you hold them accountable. How are you going to do that? How are you going to grow? What's your next step? And you're doing that with them. You're teaching them a coaching mindset, which I think is incredibly developmental. And then B, they are taking everything that they learn and they're going to apply it to their job now, because we're assuming that they want to do great at what they're doing right now. You're helping them develop. They're going to apply those skills across all aspects of their lives. And so to me, that's kind of my definition of investing in your people.
Something you just said related to me. I was at a meetup this past week, spoke at an event, and somebody said, hey, have you guys ever heard of the platinum rule? And I hadn't heard it called that. I've heard this thing. So the golden rule is treat others how you want to be treated. The platinum rule is treat others how they want to be treated. And so I think in the military, right, we all come from the military background. A lot of times when you ask your service members, your subordinates in your organization, their goals, if that doesn't align actually with the organizational goals of the military, like if, for example, if a person's like, hey, actually in 2 years, I want to get out of the military and I want to pursue my MBA and then maybe get a job at a business. it's like, oh, well, that's not actually good for our organization. And so I was actually looking for the goals that would help us, not your personal goals. I found that the military was always struggled with that at a, at a tactical organizational level. And so opportunity for improvement and opportunity for, I think at the time, like me as a lower level leader, to do better at that and actually care about people's lives. Because the reality is, when people get out of the military, the machine will churn on without you. We just talked about this in our earlier call. The machine of the military will go on without you. And if you sacrificed a ton for it, that is a great thing, and that's certainly admirable. But you have to realize that like your life and the military organization they're totally separate, and you got to make sure you're looking out for yourself as well along the way.
We've talked about a few different things here, and in my mind, they kind of come together with something James was talking about with building, I think you used the phrase high-performing team. If you have people that work for you, work with you, and it's not a team, right? If you're running a business and you have employees, right, and you're not building a team, well, then it doesn't matter if you're invested in their lives, if you know what's going on. But if you want to build a team, if you want to build this organization of people all rowing in the same direction, working towards common objectives, then you do have to know them, right? Adam talked about leadership by walking around. It takes someone with probably a high EQ and a willingness to go out and meet people where they are. You know, like James was saying, people's goals might not align with an organization's, and sometimes we will dismiss that. If you're willing to meet people where they are and then impact them on a personal level with things outside of the organization, that investment is truly priceless, and the results are immeasurably positive. And I have seen that bear out so many times over the years, in a good way and a bad way, right? And sometimes the ones that are the biggest learning opportunities are the ones where, man, we didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't invest in that person, meet them where they are, understand what they were going through, and I will never make that mistake again. And yeah, I'm sure some of you have seen something similar in your military experience.
Talking about accountability, I find it very interesting throughout my Marine Corps career is that you have the phrase, I'm going to hold you accountable to X, right? Whether it's a billet assignment or if it's some type of responsibility. And the person that has been assigned to do the task is better than the person's accountability. And that stifles the person being tasked. And I think that the more ownership that you create and more autonomy that you're allowed to create within an organization, the accountability piece, I guess we use accountability in different ways, or how we employ it in the organization. Because if you have a sub performer holding somebody else that's a high achiever accountable, then you're going to kill that person that's a high achiever if they're a subordinate every time.
Travis, how are you defining accountability? Couple sentences.
Yeah, that's something I haven't figured out yet. I think that's a good question, because the way James talks about accountability, I completely agree with. But then if I'm going to hold somebody accountable and then don't do anything about it, or I create their ceiling and all they do is hit up against my accountability, then I don't think accountability is the right word. And so I'm still trying to figure out how people are accountable, but at the same time, you create autonomy so they're not accountable, and then they have complete ownership, and then they just the sky's the limit.
Something I've been learning more about recently. So my big growth goal, right, speaking about knowing each other's growth goals, my big growth goal for 2024 is to develop even more as a coach. And so the idea of accountability that I'm thinking of right now is actually, it's holding somebody accountable to what they say they want, what they say they're going to do. And in different contexts, it may look different, but at the end of the day, accountability is just, hey, you said you were to me. You said you were going to do this. You said you wanted to do this. You said you were going to do this. We agreed that this needed to be done. Did you do it? Why or why not? And I think that's the basic level of accountability. Yeah, Adam.
Brandon, and how do you reconcile that? So if I'm on your team, and say I'm on your sales team in your business, and I say I'm going to convert this many things for whatever it is, the widget we have, whether it's coaching or selling something, or, it could be a myriad of things. It doesn't really matter. But let's say, hey, I'm super excited to be here. I know that I can do this. My personal goal is to convert this many above and beyond what I think the minimum standard is. And when I fail, to do that, and you come have that conversation for me. How do you reconcile that in business? In the military, the difference is that person, you don't have a choice for that, what person you get. Your only job is to accomplish the mission with the tools you have. In business, it's different. You can exchange tools, you can exchange people. So how do you reconcile that in business in your mind? Like, what is the path forward for somebody who, when we talk about accountability and, investing in your people, like, is there a point in which that person isn't a fit? How do you reconcile?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that I start with a mindset of this person is good inside. This person wants to develop. This person wants to grow. This person wants to do great things. And part of that would come from, what was the hiring process like? What was the interview process like? How did this person get on my team? Presumably we went through some type of process to make sure this person was a good fit. They had the mindset that they needed for the role, right? So assuming I've done all that, I think that when a person comes up short of what they said they wanted to do, it's a continuation of the conversation for a little bit. There will come, and by continuation of conversation, I mean, all right, what went wrong? What did you try? Okay, you failed. What did you learn from that? How quickly are you going to incorporate that back into the next step so that you do better next time, right? And so I think I would start there with all those other assumptions in place. But yeah, there may come a time when you find out that, oh, shoot, all those things I did to try to make sure this person was the right fit for the role, well, I made a mistake, or maybe we weren't the right fit that we thought we were. And then the conversation might change at that point. I'm trying to determine where's another place this person might be a good fit in the organization, or maybe they're not a good fit at all. But to me, it's the mindset of where you're starting, right? They're a good fit. This is a human who wants to develop, grow, and get better and do a great job. And so I think you work with them a little bit. And you have to, as the leader, you have to build in room for failure. You have to build in some room for failure and give them, and have the willingness to miss a timeline, miss a deadline, potentially, right? As a leader, you have to determine which situations you can do that and which you can't. That's up to you. But I think that just giving them the benefit of the doubt and coaching them through it is the route I would take. And then I would flex and adapt when I had to, based on where are they progressing? Are we progressing?
That zero defect mindset is such a fine line between allowing failure to happen so people learn, and then not perpetuating habitual failure. Especially, it's easy to do it in Garrison. It's easy to talk about it in Garrison, but when you move forward and, you're in a combat area and you DFL somewhere, then those rules now change.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Adam, do you let failure happen pretty easily in your business?
What do you mean by let failure happen?
So, okay, let me clarify. Great response. You see an employee on possibly the wrong track, and you know that the track that it leads them to is something they will learn, but it might not be the best for the business. At what point, what's your metric for stepping in if you see that?
Catastrophic versus non-catastrophic event. If me as the visionary, the leader, can see that it's non-catastrophic, even if it costs me a little bit of money, but it's a person that I think it's worth investing in, I will in fact let them fail, because that lesson is going to be much better learned through the process of failure than me telling them what they need to do. But I think for the folks on this call, there's two components to that. You don't just let people fail. You do it intentionally when you can see it coming, and that's good. But the most important part is what you do after the failure. How you really capture that lesson learned, pick that person back up, and then reset them on the appropriate track. And that's not an easy thing to do. That requires a true leadership finesse to, number one, not pile on and let doubt or them questioning their ability seep in, but rather capturing it as like, this is a great experience and opportunity for you and our team to improve. And I'm really excited about helping you to do that, because now you've got their attention, because they failed, and failure hurts. Good people don't want to fail.
You can just replace family and kids with business and employees on that comment.
Yeah. Same thing with your kids, for sure. All of
Travis,
James's
I
kids.
think that's a great point. Travis, I think that's a great point. I think that facet of business leadership has been made more challenging for me because of the military. And so it's like, if we're doing a drill with blanks and my guy on the flank doesn't know where the other flank is and he shoots our flank with blanks, it's like, that's a huge deal. And you have to step in, because if those were real rounds, we just killed our own guy, right? Like we just shot at our own flank.
Couple real quick, just for the audience. I hate when people do this, but I know that everybody listening doesn't know what a blank is. So a blank, or rounds, because we say rounds instead of bullets. A blank is you put a bullet in a gun and it doesn't actually fire a projectile. It just kind of makes a noise, and it's like practicing firing your weapon without real bullets in it. And when we say round, we mean bullet in the military. So I just want to synchronize everybody on that military talk.
Yeah, and flank means like the outside of your organization in the military, like on the battlefield, the outermost portion of your maneuver element. And so, with blanks, it's like that's a huge deal, because the ramifications. It was safe in that moment. That person probably learned something regardless of you stepping in. But to me, as the leader, like, you have no choice but to make a huge deal of that, because you need to make sure everyone understands the gravity of what would happen had it been the real thing. And so carrying that over to business is like, am I going to let them possibly degrade a reputation or cost us $100 or $1,000 or whatever? It's like getting that hands off is kind of reconditioning yourself to not have to jump in because of your military conditioning of when you're like, what may seem small can actually be a really big deal for safety and life and mission success.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And to kind of bring this back, because investing in people is sometimes, in fact, holding them accountable, right? Like holding people accountable, and it can be investing in people. It can be helping them to achieve their goals and get better when it's aligned with the organization, especially if it's aligned with the organization. So it's really powerful. It's really powerful. And those are lessons people remember for the rest of their lives. It becomes a part of who they are. I would venture to guess we've all made what we felt to be pretty big mistakes. And we have either been, a big part of that lesson learned and it didn't feel comfortable, or we had a leader who took some grace with us and, maybe privately hammered that lesson home. And either way, I guarantee you never forgot that lesson, and it's been a part of how you operate going forward.
Oh, I mean, I think that's the best. I had a mishap in a helicopter, broke a helicopter, did a lot of damage, my fault. And the organization was going to very significantly impact my career. And I had somebody invest in me, Adam. And somebody believed in me, took a bit of a flyer on me, and it changed the course of my career. It positively ensured that I was going to have an opportunity, right? It's on me. But man, I was set up in a way that, the only way I can repay that is to try to invest in other people the way that somebody invested in me.
What did you do?
The mishap?
Yeah.
Man, in 30 seconds... degraded visual environment, dusty landing, very unusual weather conditions, and I did not understand the way that the winds were impacting the LZ. And landing zone, thank you. And made the wrong flight control inputs and caused about $500,000 in damage to an aircraft, a brand new aircraft too. And it was on an island. And so then the aircraft had to be towed by an F-350 to a barge and barged from the island back to San Diego. So it was not only did I break it, but I broke it in a bad spot. Bureau number 167816, November 16th, 2009. 2008.
Won't forget that one.
Yeah.
Take us home, Brandon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this has been a phenomenal discussion, and by no means that we have it all figured out. Again, these are just how we are defining investing in your people, how we're thinking about it based off of our perspective, our experiences. So not wrong, not right. But man, I think the golden thread is that you won't always see a financial return or a direct improvement in your bottom line immediately when you're the leader of a team and you decide to invest in somebody's what are their personal goals? Are their growth goals? Or you decide to let them, hey, I see what you want to do here. In my experience, I don't know this will work out, but I'm going to let you do it. And then they fail. And then what you do after it, right? You're investing in them just by being there and supporting them, asking them what went wrong, helping them to see those lessons, asking them how they're going to incorporate them again. Holding them accountable was a big theme today too. That's all part of investing in your people and helping them grow. And so I encourage you to, hey, figure it out for yourself. What does that mean to you? If you're leading a team, how can you invest in your people? And how might that accelerate your team there and your team's growth, even if it doesn't happen right away? So with that, if you like the episode, please leave a review for us and let us know what we did good, what we did bad, how we can do better. Hold us accountable to providing great content for y'all. And we'll see you next time on Green Squad Chats.